Hey, what's up everyone? So I wanted to comment really quick on the Ferguson situation, Ferguson, Missouri. If you're not familiar, there was a teenager, an 18-year-old man, who was shot by a police officer there. And I don't really want to focus on that as much. There's still a lot of things being fleshed out. But the thing that is clear um, is that there is a serious problem with militarization of police and the allowance of martial law levels, um, and measures to be put out on people. I think that is one of the most disturbing aspects of the situation. In this town of Ferguson, they deployed what are very heavy-handed tactics. What looks like SWAT teams, militarized SWAT teams with tanks, armored vehicles that have sound cannons. They're using smoke grenades. Some have said that there's been tear gas potentially, been used on crowds of protesters. And to me, this is very disturbing based on what I've read and I've seen. I've watched a lot of live streams. I've watched a lot of different videos on the ground because there's just so many news teams from a whole variety of sources, small to big, that are there covering it because it's just a big opportunity in the new media world to be like, hey, well, let's go cover this. It's just an open city town. It's not like some special crime scene where access can be restricted. It's a protest across the town, so it's easier for people to go there and record. And it's just incredibly scary about the nature of how deep this militarization and these heavy-handed tactics are going. There were arrested some 10 plus journalists from big news agencies, such as there was a Getty agency reporter. I know that Al Jazeera's camera equipment got taken at some point. I know there was I think it was a Huffington Post reporter who was at McDonald's who was kicked out and stuff like that. I mean, the most incredible aspect is it's just this is a type of totalitarianism that isn't like affecting some small group of people. It's not going after the little guy or something like that. This is literally going after all the biggest agencies. You'd be like, that's really ballsy. It's really ballsy to be like, yeah, let's go ahead and arrest a bunch of people who were at multi-million-dollar publishing companies. Yeah, let's go ahead and like rile up the ACLU, which the ACLU ended up getting a statement out of the state saying, yes, 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 you can record, because originally cops were trying to like point guns at people's faces and be like, yeah, you can't record this, we're gonna take your cameras. And it's crazy. It's really crazy how instead of upholding due process and selecting out those who are actually causing damage and violence, there were some people who had looted stores and caused some damage, and a lot of those people actually, it turned out, weren't even from the town, but they were opportunistic. And to that extent that they destroyed private property, yeah, they need to be brought to accountability. But that wasn't what the militarization tactics were doing. They were going after people that were just protesting, and people are covering the protest. People are completely separate, and that indiscriminate level of policing, especially with this kind of outfitting that you'd imagine would be someone's gear in the Middle East, is just not right. It's definitely not right for protecting what is supposed to be the rights of people under the Constitution, First Amendment, Fourth Amendment, and it's something that is a warning sign for people to realize that the governments are of this United States, that is the state governments, in declaring state emergencies through the governor's office, are willing to suspend whatever they need to do and harangue and harass and destroy cameras and destroy evidence. And even in this case, they had a no-fly zone like over the city over 3,000 feet, which is clearly just to keep people from being able to cover the event from above and see the police tactics. These things are a big warning sign of what is coming. And if you're not privy to it, you really need to get privy to it. The police state, the stuff you used to hear about, maybe it was in the 70s, 80s, 90s, like, oh yeah, that happened in Nazi Germany, or that happened in the USSR. Like this type of stuff is coming to America, and the exceptions to the First and Fourth Amendments are getting put out there on like a whole wide new level. Administratively, you look at DHS, TSA checkpoints, through executive orders, through governor's offices trying to declare martial law and subvert the freedom of peacefully assembling, the freedom to record and share information and let people know what's going on. I mean, it is just downright Orwellian, 1984. So, if you haven't been keeping up with that, it's something that needs to be on your radar, and you need to be telling people about and warning people about and encouraging people to think about and say, this doesn't have to be this way. You know what I mean? This is not some automatic thing. This is not 2 + 2 = 4, in terms of logical proof. You don't have to have police tactics which are indiscriminate and go after people that are peacefully protesting and are heavy-handed and used indiscriminate methods of attacking or hurting people, whether it's, gases or sound cannons or whatever. And, personally, as someone who is a voluntarist, someone who believes in liberty, beyond whatever the government's doing. I mean, it's just something that is very terrifying to see. Yeah, I haven't seen something at this level since the crackdown, I think, at Penn State, when they had the G20 protests. You haven't seen those videos, so those are worthwhile to see because these little pangs just keep coming closer and closer. These militarized police, tactics and attacks just keep coming closer and closer to home for a lot of people, and it's coming to a point where there's a big war that's being waged right now, and a lot of it's between the judiciary and the executive. The executive is trying to destroy every ounce of liberty that people have, and strangely enough, as a turn of tides, the courts are starting to re-examine and re-uphold, and I say courts as in the judges who happen to be there, are happening to reinvestigate the value of the First Amendment and say, oh, whoa, okay, you know what, you can't do this. That examples of that would be like the cell phone searching case that was handed down from SCOTUS, and saying that police don't just get to like, oh look, we can look through your phone like automatically and stuff like that. Like the video recording across the nation with wiretapping laws that are getting overturned and saying no, you have a right to film police who are in a public area, public space, public officer doing their duty, as long as you're not physically interfering with it, you're just recording. Like, that's First Amendment protected. I mean, there is a big battle that's being waged, and if it's not fought for vigilantly, the police state's really going to swamp things exponentially, and really shut down stuff. Another thing to be wary of too is agent provocateurs. What that means is it sounds like something out of like a spy movie, but really what it means is the government actually does send in people to rile up crowds and cause riots. They'll send in someone that's actually an undercover cop, and they'll take a brick and throw it at a window or something like that, or try to get people to fight, as a means to have a crackdown. And that's scary. That's really scary. I mean, I personally don't even know how they can do it legally. I mean, they do under some level of police work case law that I'm not sure about, but kind of like how they do drug deals. Like, I mean, technically that's illegal for police to sell drugs, but they might do a drug deal in order to like get to a bigger kingpin. I mean, I don't see how that's even possible, really, like ethically with riots. Throwing stuff or punching people or breaking stuff. That doesn't really help the situation, yet there are police who are doing that. And usually you can tell because they're usually more roided up than your typical person that's protesting. Protesters tend to be more skinny. Police tend to be a little bit thicker, and they look like they might have had too many Mickey D's sandwiches, and then all they do is go to the gym and go to fast food, and they look really like. But it's something that this whole storm is coming to a head. As the millennials, I think, are coming into proverbial power, those who are born 80 to 2000 are starting to, be the ones who are in the seat of, being in charge of things in life in general, there's a tide that's changing, and the old baby boomers who have accepted the police state and accepted this federal growth is not being as tolerated by the millennials, and there's a battle that's coming up for liberties. Now, hopefully, people are learning about true liberty and what it means to have true liberty for all in that process. I hope that if you're with me on board with that idea of spreading true liberty, maximizing consent, and minimizing the initiation of violence, and hopefully we're helping people understand what that means and the powerful application of that, what it means to be able to move toward true peace and encourage people in that ethical thinking. But those who do so just based on issues or because it's a popular thing, that's going to wither, and the police state's going to keep growing and getting bigger and trampling more and more on people, covering more and more things up, causing more chaos and destruction and loss of life and property and so on and so forth. So I hope that you're paying attention, keeping an eye out there, because things are moving. They're moving quick, and this this preparation, these things that have been given to the police departments are not just because they're not there just because like, oh, we have some surplus. They're preparing for civil unrest due to economic issues. They're testing the waters for what happens. They're seeing how this equipment's going to function and what they can do. It has an application. This is not just like, oh, hey, we're bored and we just want to test these vests and stuff and these, flashbang cannons. Like, no, there's a purpose for them, and you'll see what it is soon enough. So I'll talk to y'all soon, and I hope you're doing well.